Hello, welcome to this week's episode of T-360. I'm your host, Dante Lamardi, and along with me is Justin Pickard. With the NBA season just beginning, we have already seen teams separating themselves from the rest of the pack. So we're talking top three teams in the East to start off. Now, number one, we have the Cavs. What do you think of the Cavs' play so far?
I think the Cavs are playing exceptional right now. LeBron James is nearly averaging a triple-double. And with that, you got Kyrie Irving coming out starting, and he is a phenomenal player. He knows how to pass a basketball. He knows how to score. He's leading the team in scoring with 23.5 points a game. And then you have Kevin Love down in the post, who's averaging a triple-double. His play is outstanding. The one thing that the Cavs need to work on a little bit is their defense. They have let a lot of easy points get scored in the paint. Tristan Thompson really needs to step up and play some better help defense and become a better forward at defending. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, like you said, they have an excellent, well-rounded team with LeBron James and Kevin Love nearly averaging triple-doubles. And their defense, the way I see it, it could be picked up with the development of Tristan Thompson down low. I think if he really establishes himself as a great defensive player, then the Cavs can really kind of separate from the Warriors as to being predominantly the best team in the league. Now, let's move on and talk about the Hawks, sitting at number two. And so what do you think's been working for them? They recently, in the past few years, have established themselves as a dominant team in the NBA. Now, what do you think's kind of been working for them?
What's really been working for them this year was the acquisition of Dwight Howard. Now, this is the first time we have seen Dwight Howard play this well since he was in Orlando. When he was in LA and in Houston, he did not put up the numbers he is now. He's averaging a double-double, which, again, he hasn't done since he was in Orlando. It's good to see him back on top. When he is at his best, he is the best center in the game. There's no doubt. DeMarcus Cousins has taken over that position since then, but it's good to see him getting back on top and doing what he does best in playing basketball. He's one of the best defensive centers in the game as well. He can block shots at a tremendous rate. He protects the rim. It's good to see him not being as weak as he has been in the last couple of years. To go along with that, you have Tim Hardaway Jr. from Michigan. He is a phenomenal shooter. The guy can shoot the lights out of the gym at any night. And then you have Paul Millsap, who really established himself in last year's playoff games. He showed that he could really take over the game and score at will and get rebounds at will. What are your thoughts on Atlanta?
Well, in my opinion, the only question the Hawks should have is Dwight Howard. Can he stay healthy? And I would put that on the coach, whether you limit his minutes, whether you sit him some games. But when Dwight Howard is in the game, he is the best big man on the floor at all times. And he needs to be in there to really help his team to kind of make a strong playoff push. Last year they went deep, but I know that when Dwight Howard is along the court with all the other shooters, they have great shooters. They have Kyle Korver, Hardaway, Millsap. If that team is together, then I believe that they can make a push into the finals. Now, Raptors, third place. Over the past few years, they've kind of placed themselves as a contender in the playoffs. What do you think they've been doing so well as of lately?
One thing that has worked really well for them is the play of DeMar DeRozan. He is the best shooter right now in the NBA. He can score at will. He's leading the league in scoring at 34.5 points a game, which is outstanding. It's head and shoulders above anybody else. Not to mention, then you have Kyle Lowry at the shooting guard position, who is just an automatic three-point shooter. He's averaging around 17 points a game, so that's really helping them a lot. And you have Valanciunas down in the post, who's averaging a double-double right now. So grabbing those boards and getting those plays to get those shooters open, that's really the key for them. What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts with this is you got DeMar DeRozan doing just about everything for the team, and the defensive coaches are too smart for that. It works at this point in the year, but come All-Star break later in the year, it just won't work no more. They're going to have to rely more on Valanciunas. He's been stepping up as of late with his excellent rebounding. Lowry has been playing well. So I think whether it's with the coaching or just the players themselves stepping it up, they have to have a more all-around play. And that's how I believe that they will do well this year. Now, switch gears, talk about the worst team in the East. We have the 76ers at dead last. Now, they are young. They have promise, but what can you tell me about them?
I just like the city of Philadelphia, you got to trust the process, and that's what Joel Embiid has done. He has turned out to be a pretty good scorer and a pretty good rebounder. Now, when the Sixers drafted him a few years ago, there's no way anybody thought it would have taken him 2 years to get in and actually play a game. Now that he has shown that he was well worth the pick. He is their best scorer by far. Then you also have Jahlil Okafor, who got drafted last year by the team. In my opinion, the best big man that came out of the draft. I know Karl Anthony Towns went before him, but when you talk about footwork, I don't think anybody is better than Jahlil Okafor. I think he can score at will. It's amazing how fast he is for the size that he is. He just needs to work on his defense and rebounding. He gets that going, he can be right up there with DeMarcus Cousins and people like DeAndre Jordan. Then you also have Nick Stauskas from Michigan, who, again, is an amazing three-point shooter. They got to get him more involved, and I think if you get him more involved, he'll be a great role player for you guys because you got great big men down there. If you dump it down to the big men in the post, that will give them somebody to pass out once they get double teamed. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, just kind of going off what you were saying is they are a very young team. They've gotten high draft picks the past few years. They've been historically bad. Unfortunately, as a fan base, it's tough to see. But as you were saying, you have to trust the process. They have great young players. Great young players. Joel Embiid is establishing himself as a threat to any team that he comes across. Now, we're going to go back top teams. We're switching to the West. Now, in first place, we got the Clippers. Now, the Clippers, excellent in defending. What can you tell me about their defense?
Their defense is the best in the league this year. What they do great is they play really good help defense. So if somebody gets beat, they're crashing into the paint and stopping them and protecting that rim. DeAndre Jordan, in my opinion, is the best defensive center in the game. He's the best defensive shot blocker, I believe, in the game. Nobody wants to go in the paint when he is in there. Then you have Chris Paul, who is also leading the league in assists. He has an eye for the ball. He's a ball hawk. You're dribbling around him. You got to make sure you have a tight handle on him to make sure that he doesn't steal the ball from you. Then you also have Blake Griffin, who right now is leading the team in scoring at 20 points a game. He's amazing at scoring, and he's grabbing rebounds. He's averaging about 9.5 rebounds a game. So with that team, I think their staple is defense. As long as they keep that up, I think they could really challenge the Warriors in the end.
Absolutely. Now, with the Clippers, you worry so much about their defense, but their offense, really top 5 in the league in scoring. You got DeAndre Jordan down low, excellent offensive rebounding-wise, and Chris Paul, excellent scorer, one of the best handlers in the game, and Blake Griffin, averaging 20 points a game with doing most of his work down in the paint. I really believe that, like you said, they will be able to challenge the Warriors by the end of the year. Now, speaking of the Warriors, let's talk about them. Number 1 offense, as expected, with Curry, Thompson, everybody. They really know how to shoot threes, but where do you see a weakness in them?
Their main weakness, honestly, is their defense. They do everything that the Clippers they don't do everything the Clippers actually do. They don't crash the boards when they need to. They don't play help defense. They pretty much shoot the ball. They expect to make it, and then they get back down court. They don't really crash the boards at all. They don't really have a big man either in the post. I mean, you have Draymond Green down there averaging a double-double, 10 points a game, 10 rebounds. But when he's the only one really grabbing rebounds there, it's really tough to, get ahead and control those boards and control the time of possession when you're not grabbing rebounds.
Yep. And with the most recent addition of Kevin Durant, You really saw Klay Thompson's numbers go down. You wonder if that is a potential problem, even though Durant has kind of taken his game to another level with this team. A lot of questions may have been, how can these players work together with Thompson, Curry, and Durant in any situation? When you have stars of this capability, you usually might find problems. Do they become selfish? Will they be able to work together? We saw similar problems when LeBron first went to the Heat and then even came to the Cavs again. Like, how did he work with Kyrie Irving? But he really seems to be fitting in well to this system that Steve Kerr has put together for him. And as of right now, besides their defense, I would say that they are better than the Clippers, even though the power rankings has them otherwise. Now, let's move on to the Spurs. They are excellent defensively. They know how to move the ball. They work as a team. Now, what can you tell me about them?
My big thing with the Spurs is Kawhi Leonard. He's one of the best young stars in the game. I think you give him a couple years, and he could be really up for MVP. I think him and Anthony Davis are getting into their prime at this point, and they'll be MVP candidates within a few years. The biggest thing with the Spurs is their ball movement, like it's always been. They have the best coach in basketball, and Greg Popovich, in my opinion. I would put Doc Rivers at number 2, but Pop is the best. With their ball movement, they're leading. They're one of the top 10 teams in assists. LaMarcus Aldridge is doing a great job scoring with them, and Pau Gasol is doing a great job grabbing those boards that they need to kick it out to Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think one of the biggest questions was when Tim Duncan retired, how would they move on from there? He has been the staple of their team for years now. And I think bringing in LaMarcus Aldridge has really answered those questions. Now, as of lately, Aldridge has been playing out of his mind, and he really seems to work well with these players, and he really established himself as a defensive powerhouse, and that is why I think they're doing so well as of lately. Now we'll talk worst team in the West. We have the Pelicans. The Pelicans, they have potential with Anthony Davis. He's really putting up the scoring that you like to see from a young player like himself. What do you have to tell me about him?
I mean, he's averaging a double-double right now. He's playing out of his mind. This is the best basketball he has played in his career. The problem with the Pelicans is they need to get people around him. They have Buddy Hield that they got in the draft this year from Oklahoma. He can be a really good player as long as they build him correctly, but they really need to get the pieces around Anthony Davis, because if they don't, then he will leave and go somewhere else and look for a championship somewhere else.
Absolutely. Much like the 76ers, same thing goes for the Pelicans. Just trust the process. Now we're going to talk teams in the middle of the pack who we think will have a chance of making a late playoff push. Now, in my opinion, I find that the Pacers, as of right now, sitting around 5th or 6th, have the best opportunity to do so. Just signing Al Horford, and Paul George is obviously going to be Paul George, putting up the numbers he always does. What do you have to tell me about your pick?
My pick for the East that's on the bubble that could potentially get into the playoffs, I believe the Knicks can get there. I know it's a long shot. As long as D. Rose stays healthy, I think he could really lead that team to getting into the playoffs. Porzingis is an amazing scorer. He's a young Dirk Nowitzki in my eyes. And I believe Carmelo Anthony is starting to get to the twilight of his career, but he can still put up numbers and still make that push to get them into the playoffs.
Very nice. Now we're going to close tonight with our early MVP picks. Now, who do you got? I know who I got.
I have Russell Westbrook. He is second in the league in scoring. He's pretty much averaging a triple-double. He's only a few rebounds away from having that triple-double. He's playing the best basketball of his life. Without Kevin Durant there, the ball is always going through Westbrook's hands. It's up to him to lead the Thunder deep into the playoffs and try to get a championship. He's got a few people around him that I think he could really work with. Oladipo is a beast in the post with averaging a double-double. So that being said, I think that Westbrook will get the MVP at the end of the year. How about you?
I'm going to have to agree with you. Russell Westbrook, what he's doing right now is unheard of. He just picked up his 40th double-double of his career, and he's nearly averaging a triple-double every game. Now, with numbers like this, can he keep it up? I say absolutely. He is the star of his team, and his team wants him to play like this, and I think he will continue to do so and be MVP by the end of the year. Well, folks, that's all we have for you, so we will be with you again next week. Have a good night.